Hey everyone, welcome back to the Can I Ask You a Question podcast. Each week on the show, we are asking questions and unlocking wisdom through solo episodes with myself and deep dive interviews with the most interesting people in my world. Today's question is one that I've been thinking about personally and kind of wrestling with personally as a man. And it's this: what kind of friends should I be looking for? And the title of this episode, 6 Kinds of Friends That Every Man Needs. This episode should be interesting, hopefully for everyone, but I'm specifically asking this question as a man speaking to other men. Guys and gals, they both face loneliness and the problems that brings. But from my observations, I think it's especially difficult for men to make meaningful relationships. My best guess is that part of the problem is that men don't even know what they should be looking for in terms of friendship, in terms of the kind of core relationships in their life. And as a result, they end up disappointed and discouraged and probably just give up on even trying. We're going to try and shed some light on this question today. We're going to explore it together. And the ladies in the audience who are listening, don't tune out. You can play and do play a pivotal role in encouraging the men in your life, whether that's a husband, a brother, a friend, to step out and make these kinds of friendships. And I think you're going to find it interesting to kind of step into the mind of a man for a little while and hear this. But then, guys, tune in. This is an important topic, and like I mentioned before, I'm writing it because it's a question that I'm needing to answer for myself and figure out. I have super high expectations for friendships. I love. There's this series of novels, and actually multiple series from one of my favorite authors, Stephen Lawhead. And a lot of times they feature these British or Welsh or Celtic, some Irish warriors, and this band of warriors, this band of brothers, and the kind of loyalty they show their captain and to the king, and the way they fight for each other. And that's kind of my ideal of friendship, of a band of brothers. That's what I'm trying to kind of live out in this life. And as you can imagine, that's not what every day looks like. At least without cultivating it and working for it. And so I've faced my for sure my fair share of disappointment, of being discouraged, of feeling like, man, it's just not working. Are the people, the guys out there that I want to be in relationship with, are they even out there? And this episode kind of comes out of some of those questions and some of those observations. And if at all you recognize, man, if I actually am honest with myself, there are probably some areas of my life where I could use a friend. Then tune in, listen. I think it's going to surprise you. I think some of the answers are going to surprise you. And with that, let's just jump in to the first of 6 kinds of friends or relationships that every man needs. And the first is a brother. And that could be a literal blood brother, or it could be someone that's not related to you, but that functions in your life like a brother. Every man needs, I believe, will greatly benefit from a brother. We know only a few of these kind of relationships, in my opinion, and I think there's definitely an upper limit to how many we can sustain. 2 is enough in many cases. There's actually a scripture that talks about how a 3 braided cord is not easily broken. That you get 3 men standing back to back together, and they have pretty much a 360 degree view guarding one another's backs. There's a power, and it might be a band of 5 brothers, might be a little bit more. I'd say probably 5 to 10 is probably an upper limit of people that you could be actively in relationship with, like a brother. It takes 2 things in my mind to qualify as an active brother, and I will specify. I think there's one I'm going to call a dormant brother, or an inactive, still valuable but a little bit different. But 2 things to qualify as an active brother. One is you both need to be willing to drop everything to help the other out in a time of urgent need. And this is part of the reason why I think there's a limit on the size of this. Because it's not realistic to be going every day to defend a brother, and dropping everything. I think you only can probably run out, leave your own castle to go defend theirs so many times. And so there's sort of a limit. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in knowing who sees you as that, so that you can really expect they'll come when you need them. And probably to some degree setting proper expectations without being mean or rude, so that people know where they stand in your eyes and whether they can really depend on you or not. And there's probably ways to do that that are more subtle, and not as likely to hurt someone, but that will still probably convey the level, because they need to know, are you a brother, or are you, as we're going to see, one of these different kinds of friends? Second thing I put to qualify as an active brother is you need to be actively involved in one another's lives. There needs to be a level of communication and relationship that's active, at least enough. This is all just an approximation. It's not hard and fast rules. I'm quite literally making this up based upon my best observations and thoughts and what I know of Scripture and the world, but it's not an exact rule. And there's a second category of brother, which I call a dormant brother, or an inactive brother. And this is someone who would drop everything to help, but you almost never talk. They're still valuable, but the question is whether they'd even hear from you to help before it was too late. And that's kind of the difference. That's why that second one is important, is someone that you're in enough of communication with that they could actually pick up on, hey, I think my brother needs help when you've not even asked for it. Not because we should be making everybody a mind reader. I think that's not a fair expectation. But there is this sense that if you're talking, if you're in communication, and they know you well enough, that they will actually be able to be like, hey, do we need to talk? Do you need some help here? Would it be great if I came down? Many times a brother feels the most like a true peer, and you feel the most comfortable being yourself around them. Often you will have grown up together, whether as children or perhaps through boot camp or college, and there will be a shared set of experiences which make them able to just get where you're coming from and what you mean. And this last idea of just being that shared experiences and just getting where you're coming from, that to me is one of the big definers of a brother. And it does not have to be someone that's blood related, and it could be. But I find with those few men in my life who I would say I think they qualify as a brother. That's a commonality, is that they really kind of saw me grow up. They saw Geno 1.1, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. So they kind of get when you say, hey, I kind of changed my mind on that, or when they say, hey, I've softened. You don't have to qualify that statement. You don't have to balance it. If you're suddenly a little softer on an issue, instead of having it could be like, hey, I'm still a tough guy. They see that you went from maybe over tough, over hard, over harsh, and you've actually softened in a good way, in a way that other people who have no context, they don't know the direction you're going, and it just doesn't make sense. And I hope what I'm saying now is making sense, but it's just this shared. It's almost like that twin, mental telepathy, I think it's called. There's just this, I get you. I've seen where you've been before. We have the same experiences. I probably get why you feel that way, or why you might be reacting in this way, because I know how you grew up, or I know what we were taught, or I know the experiences that you went through the last couple of years. And I think sometimes, many times, it's just too much to ask to unburden, give someone maybe 5 hours or something of life history so they can understand a 5-minute conversation. If trying to do that with a stranger, trying to do that with another person in your life, but a brother has all that prior information, and so a 5-minute conversation can actually be very deep. And I don't think an active brother needs to be every day, every week, every month, even necessarily. One of the people I'm thinking of in my life who I believe really falls into that, we're probably once to twice a year physically together, hanging for an extended period of time, like a 4 to 6 hour hanging in the evening or talking, and maybe we talk on the phone once or twice. But it's enough and consistent enough. And then social does help you kind of keep a little bit of threads with each other. But I think if you haven't talked to someone in a few years, if it would just surprise them that you called, if the idea that you ever got together was just so rare, there's probably a deactivated brother or a dormant brother. They still care for you. That's still there, and that has a lot of power and potential, but it is different than an active brother. And so that's the first one that I believe every man needs, every man I think wants. The second is a buddy. And this is different from a brother. One person may end up fulfilling a few different categories in your portfolio of friendship. As I may kind of refer to this, we're going to talk about different kind of friendships, and I like to think things sometimes. I like to almost always think of things in a holistic way. It's almost like, if it was your stock portfolio, or it was a balanced diet, you want to have different kind of friends, and they're fulfilling different things, but together they meet the sum total of your needs, hopefully. And so sometimes a brother will also be a buddy, but not necessarily, or even very likely. I've gone through different seasons where I think those I'd call brothers, or we have the most buddy-like fun together. Other seasons where it's not been that way. The thing is, you forged a relationship with your brother through shared experiences. And if you maintain the relationship, most likely you have shared values. But you formed a relationship with a buddy because they're fun to be around. And that's why the reason that you had a brother is not necessarily because they were fun. So they may not fill that buddy category. And the reason you have a buddy is not necessarily because you have all the shared values or experiences or trust level, but they're just fun to be around. And we each need a few buddies. And I'm not sure there is much of a limit on how many buddies we can have beyond whatever your schedule and your inclination might be. I think some guys probably just need one buddy or two buddies. I kind of like having a spare when it comes to the buddy department. So maybe put two as the minimum, because it's just for whatever reason that's a little more resilient. But some guys are going to have a lot of buddies, and it may depend, and it may change seasonally. If you're doing an ultimate frisbee league or a recreational football league or soccer league, you may have 12 soccer buddies. And other seasons when it's not in, you may really only hang with one or two of those guys. But we each need a few buddies. Buddies are probably peers. Either way, they're also people you can let your guard down around, at least when it comes to enjoying life and having fun. Buddies aren't necessarily built for adversity like a brother is, but they still play an important role in our lives as the men we will relax with and rejoice with. There's a passage of scripture that basically talks about laugh with those that laugh, or rejoice with those that rejoice, and weep with those that weep. I think you're a lot more likely to weep with a fellow brother, but I think you are as likely as with the brother, and maybe more likely to rejoice with a buddy. And it's an important part. We got to be able to let our hair down. We got to be able to laugh and just in our own way be silly and play and not be serious all the time. There's actually a lot of intentionality and wisdom in that. And so we need some buddies to be able to do that with. And so these are people that you maybe wouldn't feel safe. It may not even be prudent to let down your guard in the most sensitive areas of your life. You're not necessarily asking them for biblical advice or tax advice, but you are willing to let them see you laugh and joke. And, if you're maybe be all muddy on the football field, instead of usually seeing you, maybe you're in a suit and tie at the office, and you're fine to let them into a part of your world, but it's the fun part. Buddies aren't necessarily built for adversity like a brother is, but they still play an important role, as I said, to relax and rejoice with. And so hopefully what you're already going to begin to see, and I'll repeat myself a few times here, is that instead of making one person have to be everything, you begin to have an array of friendships that are each meeting a different need in you. And I hope that it's a reciprocal relationship, that you're meeting a different need for different people. And so, it gets it gets a little bit complicated, because you may be more of a buddy to someone who is a brother to you. I think that is potentially fraught with problems. I think particularly if you're a buddy to someone, they're a brother to you. I think the idea of missed expectations could be very real. So just be careful on that. Some of them it matters less. But there are some you can be different people to be different to each other. But they're the different kind of areas of your life. Let's keep moving on. Number 3 is of the 6 kinds of friendships that every man needs is an ally. Some people aren't brothers. They aren't football buddies. You might not even really enjoy them all that much or agree with every part of their lives. But still, you have a shared goal in mind that makes you allies. So each person or man needs an ally or multiple allies. This can be a confusing relationship because it feels more serious, like a brother relationship, but without the shared affection and maybe even shared history. It can be easy to get disappointed in these relationships or to discount their importance at all. But allies are essential to accomplish many of our goals and our missions in life. These could be faith allies, someone who I look at in a very broad sense, those in the Catholic Church, those the Jewish faith practicing Jews. We would have, and then all the different denominations of Christianity. I'm going to have disagreements with all of the aforementioned groups to some degree or another. But I'm going to look at them as generally faith allies because we have a shared basic Judeo-Christian values, and we kind of, I think, all share the Old Testament, and then for Protestants and Catholics the New Testament. And we have things we're going to disagree on, but we're going to probably ally when it comes to the sanctity of marriage, when it comes to purity, when it comes to the value of life. And so these are people that I can work with and want to work with, whether it's in how I vote, in the things I advocate for, in the causes we support. And these can become faith allies in humanitarian efforts. There are work allies. That could be, you own a business and there's someone with a similar business and maybe a non-competing area. You guys actually collaborate and you share ideas. It could be a co-worker at your job, and together you guys they cover you on your vacations, you cover them. We need work allies, business allies. That'd be more of the collaborating business one. Political allies. Parenting and school allies, someone that, sometimes you pick up their kids from school and sometimes they pick up yours, and you collaborate and you work. And I think sometimes we start to build these relationships. You're like, I actually spend more time with Tom than most people. We share off on these duties, or we're at soccer practice twice a week. And I think we can get disappointed and so are we going to be buddies? Or are we going to be brothers? Are we going to, it's like, well, maybe, but this is actually a category all of its own, and it's useful and it's valid. We are allies. We have a shared mission. These are people who are angry about what you are angry about and passionate about what you're passionate about, at least in one shared area. These relationships, they may not last forever. The alliance may become irrelevant, like when both your teenagers graduate high school, but for that season, they are invaluable. Try to invest in these relationships and enjoy them for what they are instead of being disappointed for what they aren't and may never be. And just a side note here, now is a good time to mention something that someone may change from one kind of friend to another and perhaps back again. I kind of already mentioned that. Have you heard the somewhat jokingly said proverb, blessed are the flexible, for they shall not break? We have to be flexible and adaptable when it comes to our friends. I know in my context of Christian community in the local church, this can be difficult. Many times I've wanted someone to be more of a friend than they end up being. Sometimes people surprise you either in a good way or a bad way. I've seen that where it's like, man, someone's really faithful to serve, and they actually become someone that I can kind of depend on in a department that I'm leading or I'm also serving in. But it's just not clicking as a buddy. There's not that brother relationship. Sometimes maybe someone's a buddy, but they don't end up actually really being a true ally. Like, we hang out, but I can't really depend on them when it comes to work or it comes to this. And I think being flexible and as things shift and as seasons shift, it's why I learned to be flexible and accept people as they are at the moment is so important. Situations will change, peoples will change. You're just trying to keep the full, not to be vitamin deficient in any area of your friendship nutrition. You're trying to keep the full portfolio of friendship there, but it's okay to swap people out. With thoughtfulness, they're human beings. They're not chips on a board. That's not what I'm saying. But you do at some point, I think, or at least how I think about it, is kind of analytical. And I go, okay, they're not going to be that in my life anymore in this season. They're getting mad or stuck. I'm going to accept their vote to move into the area of my life they've decided to be in, and I'm going to then replace them, for at least for the season, with someone who wants to fulfill that part in my life. I'm going to jump here in now to the fourth type of friendship or relationship that every man needs. And that's the relationship of a soldier. The first few, and I'm going to explain that one because you're like, what? I have a brother, I have a buddy, I have an ally, a soldier. What? The first two particularly are just kind of very obvious relationships. You got brothers, you got buddies. We kind of know that. I think ally is probably not one that everyone has thought about. It's a little bit different. The next few are kind of like that. They're actually kind of referencing military terms, and I'm not a military expert. I never served in the military. But they are parts of a relationship that especially you're going to need if you are any type of leader. So the fourth relationship that I'm going to say every man or most of us need is the relationship of a soldier. Some friendships aren't technically friendships at all. They are a relationship with a very specific purpose. If you're a leader, whether of a church or a nonprofit, a business, a team at work, or your local rec sports league, you will need soldiers. These are people who work for you towards a particular mission. I used to manage restaurants when I was younger, and during any shift I had cooks, dishwashers, servers, and each person had a different job to do, but they were all working towards the same mission of hosting our guests, feeding them good food, and making money for the company that wrote our paychecks. Sometimes I led people who were buddies too, so there was a kind of a dual relationship, which meant that they had to wear two hats, but the people I led at the restaurants weren't a part of the rest of my life. And that was okay. They hopefully had their own brothers and buddies and allies. I had a mission to accomplish, and they had a job to do. And so, this is one of those things that you're going to need. You're going to need people that are soldiers that are working just specifically to help you accomplish a specific mission. And it's okay for them to just kind of do that role. Another side note. Once again, being okay that a soldier isn't a brother or a buddy or an ally is important. It's also important to recognize that they won't necessarily share the same level of vision, dedication, or passion towards the bigger mission you are pursuing, and that's okay. You need soldiers, and they need a job. You need soldiers, and they need a job. As a team or organization grows, your managers at some level of the organization will probably need to carry more of the vision, which leads to our next kind of friend, which we're going to jump into a second. And so with soldiers, this is a mistake I've tried to make, is trying to make everybody share the same level of passion and vision about the mission, instead of just letting people that just want a job just do that job. And that's, in my opinion, a mistake. And I'm learning to accept that some people in my life and in that mission are air quotes just soldiers. They are more than that. They have so much value, but in the relationship, they're just soldiers. That's all they want to be. It's all I really need them to be, and it's actually beneficial for a variety of reasons. But there is another category of relationship when it comes to kind of achieving the mission, and we're going to jump into that right after this quick break. And that is just to invite you and to ask you to subscribe, to rate, and to review the podcast wherever you're watching or listening, whether that's over on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere else. Thank you so much. It means the world to me when I see the hours watched or listened to on the podcast, and I know that you guys are giving valuable time, and it's a super big honor that I can share with you and hopefully help you grow in wisdom and exploring these important questions, whether it's from politics to friendship and as a man to focus and all the different things that we end up talking about. And so the way that you can help is subscribe, rate, and review it. Help spread the word. And then please tell a friend about it. Tell another guy friend. Tell a gal in your life. It's for guys and gals, this podcast for sure. And let's keep spreading the word and growing this Can I Ask You a Question podcast community. And I'm being more active on social again. So get on there on Instagram and or X, actually back on X, and then posting shorts as well as full episodes here if you're watching on YouTube. And so let's continue to engage together. I want to hear your thoughts, doing some polls at times, and we'll keep having fun. Okay, here's the fifth kind of friendship or relationship that every man needs, especially every man that's going to lead in any kind of capacity, and that is a captain or captains. Like I mentioned before the break, you need more than just soldiers to accomplish your mission. You're going to also need captains, one captain or multiple captains. These might be managers in your organization. They might be junior partners at your firm or business. They might be elders at a church or board members at a privately owned business. Obviously, I think with elders or board members. Sometimes their captain's kind of working for you. Sometimes you're kind of working for them. So that can be complicated. These people don't have to have the executive level vision you do, but they do need to care enough and see clearly enough to forward the mission and lead others to do their part as well. Captains are actually a really fun part of the friendship portfolio. And depending upon your life mission, you might end up having quite a few of these relationships. I would call Jesus' 12 disciples captains in his army, the army of the Lord, and the kingdom of heaven. I'd call junior officers under a senior officer in the military quite literally captains, if I understand my military hierarchy right, and forgive me if I got it wrong. I'd call the first employees at a hard marching startup where everyone is sacrificing, not just merely soldiers and employees, captains. And you can have fun with these guys like a buddy. For a season, they may have your back like a brother. You will collaborate with them like an ally. But the important thing to remember is, first and foremost, they are your captains. They are here because of a specific circumstance or mission. Very likely, this will be a temporary relationship, at least in the form that it's in currently. It can be incredibly close, and some of these captains become captains, disciples, mentees. If you're a mentor, the mentee will become brothers. Some are going to become buddies. They'll shift into that mode, or they'll become allies in their own right, presumably after the leader-captain relationship is completed. But almost certainly, these captains have ambitions and missions of their own, which will eventually take them away from you. Ouch, this one is hard to accept. I have gotten to experience this firsthand as a director of a small Christian internship and college, along with my wife. At first, 8 years ago when we began in that role, I felt so proprietary over the first round of students to come through the program under our leadership. I kind of hoped that they would see us as their leader and kind of the person that they look to for life. And I'd poured so much into them. But eventually, my wife and I learned, and are still learning, to graduate them with grace. And at the same time, to actually look forward to the next round of fresh faces that are coming down the halls. This is a tough and important lesson for pastors and entrepreneurs and leaders of any kind. It can be tempting to hold on to talent too long in our team, but it's better to graduate them with grace and build a strong culture of recruiting fresh talent for the team. It's actually better for everyone in this way. And so the area of soldiers, the area of captains, whether you have one or you have multiple, and we'll kind of break that down a little bit later to kind of give you an idea what that might look like. It's probably one of my favorites because, like I said, they actually end up being, you are spending so much time with them because you're doing the work together, but they have more of the vision. So they actually, there's a greater level of commitment, of passion. They do kind of get you a little bit. And so they can start to feel a bit like brothers. They can definitely feel a lot like allies, and they are in that moment. I think the difference between just a straight ally and this is that an ally is the way I look at an ally is they're not actually dependent on you. It's not a dependent relationship. It's two independent people collaborating together. Whereas this one, you're writing the checks, you're the boss. And so it shifts it a little bit different. I call them your captains. But you can end up having a lot of really fun and rich relationships. And this could last years and years. But I think for me, I'm having to, and this probably makes me sound bad. It probably is a reality of where I'm still immature and needing to grow better as a leader and healthier as a person, is at times I think have resented their ambition to kind of grow beyond me. And that's hard to say, but I don't think I'm alone in it. At times as a leader, I've resented their ambition to grow beyond me, and it's maybe put some negative things into the relationship, or maybe I held on too long, or just got hurt or frustrated about what was just a natural progression in their leadership. And this is, like I said, such a fun relationship. I think it's kind of like, in a weird way, I'll relate it to maybe any season of life with kids. our daughter is just nearly 3 years old, and it's so fun. And it's so fun, but it is temporary. It's going to move on. And it'd be unhealthy to grieve that overly. Instead, you have to you enjoy it, but you accept it's going to change. And with captains, a lot of times they're going to be younger, and a lot of times they're going to that's not their final destination. They're going to shift around to different roles and careers and teams, and they may come back around to you and be a captain with you again, or they may, like I said, actually have shifted. Now they have their own thing and they're an ally. So allowing for that flexibility and accepting as just a par for the course, and enjoying what you can, which is much, versus getting frustrated, is so important. I'm learning it. Hopefully we all are. Let's keep jumping on. The sixth type of friendship or relationship that every man needs is that of a general. The final kind of relationship is rare and valuable. It's that of a general. Even if you're the top person at your organization today, at one point you had a general. There's that famous Christmas movie, I think it is White Christmas, and all of the soldiers come to honor their general, right? And they have this, I wish I could remember the song as they sing it, but they're all honoring, I think they call him the old man. And he was their general, and even though they've gone on to different careers, they're no longer in the military, they're honoring the general. At one point, we all had a general, an important and perhaps singular mentor whose opinion has shaped you like few others. This could be your father, a pastor, a boss, or a coach. I'm going to mention that briefly in a little bit. There are a few more relationships I could have outlined, like that of a father. That could be its own episode entirely. But I broke them down in this kind of very specific way. So very likely, if you had a good relationship with your father, they are one of, or perhaps the biggest general type figure, leader type figure in your life. Perhaps you are blessed to have a great father and a great mentor in a pastor or a boss or a coach. Or perhaps you didn't have a great father and a boss or a coach or a pastor filled that role. Every person, and especially every man, needs a general to look up to and learn from. Sometimes this person will have passed away or no longer be in your life, but still their legacy can serve as an ideal to aspire to. No human general is perfect. No human father or leader or mentor or person that helped kind of shape us is perfect. So we're always going to probably, if we're growing, divert or diverge from some of the things they did. We don't have to be them to honor them. We don't have to be them to be inspired by them. But most likely, if they are that general life, it's because something inspired you, something shaped you, and you may even exceed what they did in that area. But we need those people. Okay, final thoughts. Hope it's been helpful to you. I'm going to break it down a little bit. Be here just a little bit longer, and then I'll let you go, which you could always just turn me off right now, but don't do it. Every upper level leader will need all 6 kinds of friends. And an upper level leader doesn't have to be a mega business guy or a mega pastor. It might be an owner of a small store with 1 manager / captain, 2 employees / soldiers, 1 other merchant / ally who shares ideas, 1 mentor or general who speaks in their lives, a brother to unburden their heart to, and a buddy to unwind with. And so it can end up being, if I just count this out, someone owns the store, 1, 3, 4, 5, like 7 in the brother and the buddy. Be like seven men in your life could theoretically, I think, kind of fulfill much of this portfolio of friends. But if you have a larger team, then obviously you're going to have a lot more captains. You may have more allies and so on. They could be a team coach with an assistant coach / captain, a coach general who mentors him, and the players / soldiers who win the game. But if you're a leader, then you're not only going to have buddies and friends, brothers and buddies, but you're going to have soldiers, and you're going to have captains, and you're going to have allies, and you're going to have a mentor as well. If someone isn't a leader at all, and for some guys that's just not your ambition, I think probably in some sense I would argue that every man is a leader. especially if you are a husband and then you're a leader of your home, and especially if you have kids, then you know your wife might be wearing a couple of hats. She's your ally, she's your equal, your partner, but in some ways she might be the closest approximation to a captain, and your kids in some ways are the soldiers. They're helping forward the family mission, of which a big part is helping them be healthy people who love Jesus. If you're a Christian. So I think everybody can find in some way all six, but if you just don't see yourself as a leader at all, you're still going to need four of the six kind of friends. You're still going to need a mentor or a general to guide your life and to get wisdom from, a brother, a buddy, and an ally. An ally, but if I'm not doing business, I'm not doing anything, what do I need an ally? Even if it's just a neighbor who takes your trash down to the street for you when you're gone, or get your packages from your door if you're going to be home late that night. We need people to collaborate with, and I think we're better from it. I think so many of us we literally don't ask our neighbors for help. We literally don't depend on anybody. We just use an ordering service to get our food or to get our groceries delivered, or we hire someone online to walk our dogs. And I think it's kind of lonely. It's convenient in a sense, but it's also lonely in a sense. Hopefully, just identifying these six kinds of friends every man needs, or at least needs to know about, will help you begin to identify who in your world is already filling these roles and which you still need to fill. As I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I made it not because I have this all figured out, not by far, but because I'm still figuring it out and I'm trying to put it into practice myself. I think for me, just identifying these six kind of friends helps me set better expectations for those in my life, while still showing me where I'm missing a key relationship. I know firsthand that sometimes the friend you want doesn't seem to exist, and that it can make things feel kind of grim, kind of lonely. We don't like to admit that, guys, but it's true. I'm reminding myself, and I'm reminding you, in moments like that, to pray and ask God to bring the friends you need. Actually kind of a cool story. Just this last week, I was feeling some of this, and I prayed that prayer. Basically, God, there's just kind of some relationships. I just feel like I don't see them in my life. There's some desires in my heart for friendships. I have a huge value on friendship, even if I don't have actually a huge capacity to be with people all the time. And I felt, and still do to some degree, that there's some gaps. And I just was praying to God about it. And actually, it happened to be a Sunday. I was at church, and within minutes, a person reached out and asked me to sort of mentor them. Someone that I had kind of thought, man, this could be a friendship, a relationship. And I'd actually kind of reached out. It didn't seem like it was going to probably go anywhere. And all of a sudden, I pray, and they were like, I've been praying, and I've kind of felt like you were the person. Would you ever do this? Would we ever go out for coffee or do something? And it was honoring. It was an answer to prayer. So literally, this doesn't always happen, but I answered to part of my prayer in just a few minutes. Many men carry a unique weight as sons, brothers, husbands, fathers, leaders, and we need other men around us. Please don't let fear, complacency, or anything else keep you from forming your own band of brothers, buddies, allies, soldiers, captains, and generals. I kept the list to 6 kind of friends or relationships, but there are at least 2 other friendships, relationships that a man needs or at least will benefit greatly from. One is a wife. It is probably my chief. It is my chief relationship. It carries the most weight, accomplishes the most, and it can feel almost entirely self-sufficient. And I think, guys, we lean on that, but I do think we're missing out if we don't go and get the other 6, which is why I emphasize those. But it's such a beautiful one and an important one. And for many, if not most of us, sons and daughters. You may end up just having sons, just having daughters. I currently just have a daughter. But our relationship with them and what it draws out of us and who it encourages us to be as we ourselves, if you didn't catch that picture, not only do we have a general, but most likely we will be to other people a father, a mentor, a general. And so the son and daughter relationship is another one of those. Once again, what I hope you're seeing is that relationship is much more of a web than we often think. Less pressure on any one strand, but depth, intricacy, and strength in the whole. And that was kind of the aha moment of this episode, and preparing for this episode for myself, is that I've known it, and I kind of see it, and I kind of forget it, that every relationship doesn't have to be equal. Every relationship doesn't have to fulfill all of these 6+ different categories of relationship, and that it's to try to have one person do it is not nigh impossible. But it's so doable. I feel like it's truly doable to find over, it's kind of like, I think, if you ever saw that movie Moneyball, and, instead of just getting one amazing player that can do everything, they get a team of people who together achieve the statistical needs of the team. Enough hits, enough catches, enough, I don't know baseball super well. To try to get this in one person, or even just a couple of people, highly unlikely. To be flexible, and between the full array of people you have in your life and those that you kind of recruit and you build and you cultivate relationship, you're able to do it. But then when it's done, the needs are met, the different parts of your life are met, and there's a great beauty in that. Final question. Which of these 6 kind of friendships or relationships do you most need to develop and to pray for? And I just want to pause on that for just a moment. On this show, we're asking questions every single week. And I would encourage you to not just simply ask them to yourself, but ask them to God. And it could be just like a 10-second prayer. I don't pray very long prayers often, but I hope that I'm in a daily kind of posture, which is kind of a really religious word, attitude of prayer, where I'm working to make sure I literally do this, that I go, God, what do you think about this issue? God, what do you want me to prioritize? And just ask it. And in that moment, and then going forward, just listen and try to discern between that, which is just kind of your own idea, which could be great, but also what is a divine idea from God. And so, which kind of friendships, relationships do you most need to develop? Think about it, ask yourself, and pray to God and ask Him to guide you and ask Him to then help you find them and to cultivate them. Is it that of a brother, that of a buddy, of an ally, of a soldier or soldiers, captain or captains, or a general, a mentor, someone to look up to in your life? Don't wait. Pray it now, ask it now, and tonight, tomorrow, whenever you're listening, begin to apply it. With that, thanks again so much for listening to this episode. I'd love to hear from you on social. Reach out, let me know how you're enjoying it, what your thoughts were. Put in the comments. And then once again, would you rate, review, subscribe to the show wherever you're watching or listening. Tell a friend about it, and I will see you next Tuesday. God bless you guys. Let's build these relationships.